Proceedings are resumed. Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for education, continuing with her debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we left off, I was, thanking the Office of the Major Projects Office for their support, even during the time of their extreme short-staffed situation, and when we got the position of the Senior Project Manager for the schools project that came on board in 2016. At that point, the outline business case was really able to be developed in earnest and was later submitted to Cabinet and approved by Cabinet in a timely fashion. And then the tendering of the contract and the award also proceeded seamlessly, and a local contractor was awarded the work in late June of this year. And actual work commenced starting in July. And Madam Speaker, the point of this is just to show that the project continued, the phase 2 in particular, the development of the gym, following what can be considered best practice as it relates to ensuring that a proper assessment, analysis, conversations with key stakeholders, and an outline business case being developed, launched, and work is actually started in earnest again, and the projected completion date for the phase 2, which is the hall, as I said, the kind of expanded version of the hall as it relates to offering other things such as curriculum, provision, etc., is slated for early 2017. And the hope is that it'll be done in time for final examinations and for graduations to take place at that time. Madam Speaker, it is, and as I said, phase 3, which is the completion of the project, the work for that is also ongoing as it relates to developing the strategic outline case. Again, going through the process of developing and getting the information necessary in order to finalize that process. And we're hoping that the strategic outline case will be completed by the steering committee and put forward to Cabinet for approval by the end of this year as well. And so, Madam Speaker, that is a case study of what should be done as it relates to the development of these particular projects. And so it's a clear demonstration also that under this government and certainly this minister, we have already been adhering to the principle of informed decision-making, Principle 9, which is enshrined in this bill as it relates to the development of major capital projects which require significant public expenditure. Madam Speaker, the bill also in Part 5, Section 13, speaks to the reverse electronic auction. And Madam Speaker, this is I believe, a very innovative tool that can be used as it relates to getting best value for money when public officers go out to seek procurement of various things. And one of the things, Madam Speaker, that the Ministry of Education has been involved in already as a pilot to this particular project is working very closely with the Central Procurement Office. There was a pilot project of the ICT equipment for the schools that utilized this reverse electronic auction. And Madam Speaker, from the accounts that I have received from the team in the ICT unit in the ministry and from the Central Procurement Office, we've already, as a government and certainly as a ministry, we have already seen the benefits of doing such a program in that initial pilot project yielded some savings of roughly up to 30% based on, I guess, what was considered the kind of pre-tender estimates based on previous tenders that had been conducted. So, Madam Speaker, it's these type of programs which this bill allows for and supports that will help us as a government continue to get best value for money and also adhere to the principles of procurement, which is enshrined in this law in Schedule 1. So, Madam Speaker, having this bill and making this bill come to fruition is critically important for future fiscal responsibility and financial prudence in the affairs of the government as it relates to procurement and procurement activities. We have seen that during the what not to do period of 2010 to 2013, the schools projects that took place and the decisions that took place can be summed up as nothing short of a complete disaster as it relates to the management and leadership under the former minister. In particular, as it led to a huge waste of public funds and no regard to the fiscal responsibility and prudent management, which certainly this bill calls for, but good governance in general calls for. And most disturbingly, Madam Speaker, it also highlighted the lack of regard for the health and safety of our children as well. And so, Madam Speaker, I believe based on that particular process that took place during the 2010 to 2013 and using this schools project, both the high schools project and the primary school project, as an example, that was a prime example of the kinds of activities as to why the UK felt it necessary to step in and enforce the adoption of the framework for fiscal responsibility in December 2012. But again, Madam Speaker, in contrast, when we took office under those parameters, and the reason that this government was able to meet the target set under the framework for fiscal responsibility, which is now a part of our law, within the stated deadline, is because we have been disciplined, we have been transparent, all the while growing the economy, lowering the levels of unemployment to near record lows, lowering the cost of living, not cutting jobs in the civil service, not raising taxes on business people and people in general, but instead cutting wasteful spending and being more accountable to the people that we were elected to serve. Madam Speaker, this bill will help us to ensure that as a country, we continue to operate in this fashion. But in order for this legislation to be effective, Madam Speaker, we must first elect people who are willing and committed to abiding by the law and whose actions actually demonstrate willingness to adhere to the principles enshrined in this bill. Because, Madam Speaker, quite frankly, as legislators, as members of Parliament, as ministers in this government, we shouldn't really need a bill such as this that enshrines these fundamental principles that we should all be adhering to, especially as it relates to procurement. But unfortunately, Madam Speaker, as we have seen today, we can't just rely on not having this in law, because we've seen what happens or what can happen in that regard if you don't have those persons who believe in those principles intrinsically. So, Madam Speaker, based on our track record as a government, and in particular, in stark contrast, based on the process involved in the development of the John Gray High School project development process and carried out since we took office in May 2013, we have proven our commitment to adhering to these principles long before we brought this bill to the Legislative Assembly. Madam Speaker, we had no issue fulfilling the tenets of this legislation without waiting for it to come into force. And so, Madam Speaker, I certainly give this bill my support, and I believe that this legislation is critical to help prevent the country from ever having what it had before us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I'll call on the Honorable Minister for Finance to wind up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg your indulgence. 1 second, Madam Speaker, please. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I wish to conclude the second reading of the Procurement Bill 2016 by thanking all honorable members for their review of the bill and the debate and the positive comments that they have made this evening, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I will attempt to address some of the points that were raised by members of this House. And Madam Speaker, even though the honorable member from Northside isn't here, Madam Speaker, he did propose some amendments to the bill, which I'm in possession of. With your permission, I would like to speak to those as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the honorable member from the 4th elected member from Borden Town asked a question as to the inclusion of or the exclusion of the land transactions in the bill. Madam Speaker, the reason for that, of course, is primarily because the acquisition or disposition of land goes through a fairly lengthy process where there are several valuations that are required and obtained, and then the matter goes before Cabinet, and then of course it comes to this Parliament for debate. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is for that reason why it was not included in the procurement bill, because the procurement bill seeks to do primarily with works, supplies and consumables. And Madam Speaker, the land acquisition, again, the purpose of coming here to the LA, of course, is for a negative resolution. Comes here for a negative resolution, Madam Speaker. So that's the reason why we haven't included that in the procurement bill. Madam Speaker, the suggestion that we include one additional member on the Public Procurement Committee to be nominated by the Leader of the Opposition. Madam Speaker, I will take that into consideration and discuss it with my colleagues prior to the committee stage on the bill. And Madam Speaker, I also think that his suggestion with respect to holding workshops with all potential suppliers, certainly informing them that the opportunity is available and that they should make themselves available for that time. Something similar to what was done when we introduced the harmonized tariff at the Customs Department. We put on workshops to educate those who would import things and use the Customs Department services. And they were able to, I think they held those workshops for approximately 6 months. So it gave everyone ample time to come and understand the requirements of that law and the systems. And I think it's a wonderful suggestion, Madam Speaker, and I would undertake to do the same for this procurement bill. Madam Speaker, as I said before, the comments were mostly positive, and I thank all honorable members for that. Madam Speaker, the honorable member from East End made a significant contribution when he said we need to distinguish between negative or adverse political interference and good or beneficial political interference or benign. And he gave several examples as to how he did that during his time as a minister. And Madam Speaker, as elected members, it is correct that we have an overriding obligation, a duty to protect the public purse, protect the integrity of the government. And if we believe that it requires and we can justify the involvement, I don't want to say interference, but the involvement of an elected official to ensure that something is done properly and for the right reasons, and that can be documented and justified, then I think, yes, I would agree with the member from East End that we have an obligation to do so. So, Madam Speaker, Schedule 6 to the bill One second. Give me a second, Madam Speaker, while I search for it. Madam Speaker, Schedule 6 to the bill says that the role of Cabinet is to formulate and implement procurement policy that promotes the government's economic and social objectives, encourages trade and investment in the economy, and expands employment in the Cayman Islands. So, Madam Speaker, we see there that Cabinet, and I encourage other elected members to play their part. Cabinet has an obligation to ensure that certain things are done for the benefit of the country and the public purse and the economy as a whole. Madam Speaker, Section 16, subsection 3. Actually, before I get to that stage, Madam Speaker, the member from East End also spoke of the Entity Procurement Committee and said he would like to see more flexibility in the composition of that procurement committee with respect to having greater expertise. Madam Speaker, I see nothing wrong with the committee being able to co-opt other members for a time being if it be necessary that they need greater expertise than what would have been originally appointed. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, the overriding objective should be to ensure that we have all available expertise and knowledge to ensure that we get the best value for money. Madam Speaker, Section 16.3 of the bill also speaks to the disaggregation of projects. Those would obviously be very large projects such as the one at the airport, high-value projects, Madam Speaker. The disaggregation of those projects to ensure that there's adequate Caymanian participation should it be necessary that a large and perhaps non-Caymanian entity, if it is necessary that they be awarded a contract. It is also necessary that the government ensures that before the contract is awarded, that we negotiate and require the level of Caymanian participation desired, and that be a part of the contract, and therefore the performance of the contract would require compliance with that requirement, and that we would then hold the contractor, whomever that may be, accountable to those requirements. So, Madam Speaker, the bill is well thought out. Madam Speaker, I will not say it is perfect because nothing is ever perfect, especially legislation, hence the term amendment and revision. But we have tried to cover as many bases as possible. And Madam Speaker, the member from East End, as well as the fourth elected member from the District of Bordentown, both spoke of the possibility of the Leader of the Opposition being able to appoint a second member. And Madam Speaker, again, I would take that into consideration and discuss that with my colleagues so that if possible, we could then make the amendment at the committee stage. So, Madam Speaker, again, I would like to thank the fifth elected member from the District of Georgetown, the fourth elected member from the District of Bordentown, the member from East End, the sixth elected member from Georgetown, the second elected member from West Bay, and everyone else, Madam Speaker, for their tacit support of this bill, and I would commend the passage of this bill to this honorable House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Procurement Bill 2016 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Believe the ayes have it. Accordingly, the Procurement Bill 2016 has been given a second reading. Recognize Honorable Premier for the motion for the adjournment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the adjournment of this honorable House until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday. As I indicated to members last week, we intend to work throughout this week so that we can complete the agenda by Friday evening.
The question is that this Honorable House now adjourn until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. I believe the ayes have it. Accordingly, the House now stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.